Hello, everyone. We welcome you to our Saturday morning Bible study. We're grateful you could join us this Saturday, beautiful morning in New Jersey, and we've got Tom here live with us. We are recording today from the North Star Cottage, and it's in the United States of America. And we welcome you all, and Tom will begin our session.
Welcome, everybody. The works of the Lord are great, sought out of all them that have pleasure therein. His work is honorable and glorious, and his righteousness endureth forever. He hath made his wonderful works to be remembered. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion. He hath given meat unto them that fear him. He will ever be mindful of his covenant. He hath showed his people the power of his works, that he may give them the heritage of the heathen. The works of his hands are verity and judgment. All his commandments are sure. They stand fast forever and ever, and are done in truth and righteousness. He sent redemption unto his people. He hath commanded his covenant forever. Holy and reverend is his name. So that's Psalm 111, verses 2 to 9.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Sounds like a recipe for the salvation of mankind in today's world where people are looking for something secure and stable and whatever. Just think about this, the works of the Lord, which are verity and judgment, and they are standing forever and ever. So there's the rock that we stand on.
I was thinking about the verse that said, he hath showed his people the power of his works, that he may give them the heritage of the heathen. And it reminded me of Christ Jesus in Matthew 5:5 saying, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So like the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, again, Carrie sent me a boatload of commentaries, which I'll share some with you this morning, and one on that first verse about praising the Lord. I verily believe that we have not paid attention enough to the act of praise as going forth from the inmost soul. We may have paid more attention to the act of prayer. We have paid more attention to the act of believing. We may have paid more attention to the act of humiliation before God and deep repentance. All these are very important, but shall we forget to praise him? Shall we forget to acknowledge the infinite debt of gratitude we owe to him? What should we think of creatures who did this toward each other? How many thousands of providences of a most momentous description has he overruled for us and not received any return of praise? How many thousands of prayers has he answered, and yet not we give him a single tribute of praise? And that's very sobering, how important it is. And to me, it goes back to what I gave at the roundtable last week that I consider so highly important. It's in Collectania, and it's in Mrs. Eddy's article Day. But I tell you the truth, when I say there's only one source of good, God, the conscious recognition and acceptance of this fact, acknowledged by every activity of the mind, not 2 or 3 times a day, but every few moments all day long, no matter what the outer self is doing. And this maintained will enable anyone to express his perfect freedom and dominion over all things human. So that is really, spending your whole day praising God for the goodness that he gives you. That's ultimately what he is saying, or Mrs. Eddy is saying in that. And try it. You'll like it. It will help you immeasurably to do that. You'll see the good in life, and you'll be grateful for it. It connects you to the Maker. And then one other, I thought this was a very important one too, about remembering. It made his wonderful works to be remembered. And literally, memory hath he made for his wonderful works. What are you using your memory for? They are so made that man may remember them. The memory of man also is so made that it may retain them. The highest and most appropriate exercise of memory is to attain the lessons of the works of God, to treasure up for gratitude and for use what he teaches, his intelligent creation through those works. Memory can never be better employed than in treasuring up the truths which the Creator teaches in his providential dealings with us and in his word. How much better would it be for man if he labored more to remember these things, if he sought to forget many of those things which he is so careful now to retain in his recollection? I mean, that is so true. So we were given a memory to remember his works. Use it for that. It'll change your life. Don't use it to remember all this horrible stuff you think you went through or whatever you
years ago.
Yes, so many years ago. It's a beautiful thought. And, you know, Bicknell Young says that we all must have a forgettery. And I love that. So,
Yeah, there are some things that are worth forgetting and forgiving. Well, and the thing is, it goes both ways. Because when we remember what God has done and is doing for us and are grateful to him for us, he is ever mindful of his covenant. And we all remember what his covenant is, right?
The agreement.
Yeah. He takes care of us when we take care of his business.
I also feel that it helps me exalt God, and therefore the supremacy, as Mrs. Eddy talks about, her writings. It makes me feel here is something, a supreme being that I subscribe to, so to speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, because quite frankly, I mean, what can we do without God directing it and supporting it and blessing it that's worth anything? I mean, can we really do anything worthwhile unless God directs us to do it?
No.
No, not really. So why try?
Time.
My grandchildren are good at that. When you see good, you are good.
Very good. Yes, that's true.
So this psalm is like we've been talking about, praising God for the good that he does for us. But part of the reason that I selected this for the quote was, and I'm not making a comment about praising. That's a good thing, right? But this concept that God is a caring God. So, like, who is God? You know, is he someone that doesn't really know us? Someone who's just gonna destroy us if we don't follow his rules or that sort of stuff? I mean, this is coming across that God is a very loving God. That's what really meant a lot to me about this song. That God is a loving God and he cares for us in a personal way. So I think that's very, very important and meaningful, right? That this psalm is about a caring God.
Well, yeah, and in science, we understand what that really means. God is a caring God because he is all of love. I mean, there isn't anything outside of God.
Yeah, we love because he loved us first, right?
Yeah, we love him because he first loved us. He always does, and he always will. So get used to it.
So I was thinking it was kind of helpful. Like there are people who might feel lonely, or they might feel abandoned, or
Or
maybe their life is
betrayed.
miserable in some way. And how nice is it to know that there is a caring God out there?
It'll change your whole life.
And he does.
When we feel that way, we can start praising God and remember, we can all remember at least something that he has done for us. If we do that, I think we gain our joy back, as you've spoken about many times.
Thank you. Yeah, praise him, praise him. Praise him, praise him, praise the everlasting King. And this does go along with our Beatitudes and Revelation.
Okay. So our topic today is stand fast in the Lord, which comes from Philippians chapter 4, verse 1. That's something to think about, our topic, stand fast in the Lord. Now, and today we kind of have two parts to our Bible study today, but I do link them together. Doing like a recap of Revelation, Thomason pointed out that there were 7 blessings in the book of Revelation. So I thought it was interesting not to focus on, hell and brimstone and fires and all that's earthquakes and stuff, but we can focus on the lessons that we learned from Revelation, and that we are blessed. So we included the 7 blessings that was outlined by Tomlinson in our Bible study today. And just want to get people's thoughts on those blessings. Like, is there any particular blessing that means something to you? How has it helped you, perhaps, or not helped you?
The blessing number 1 is, it's one thing to read, but it's another thing to hear the words of the prophecy. That means, to me, it means take some time and just reflect on things and let it sink in instead of just going through a cursory fashion. Because after all, God is the heart and soul of all of our being. So if we've heard his word, it takes time to make some time and effort to let it sink in. Otherwise.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this says, blessed is anyone who actually takes this seriously, takes it into their heart, and recognizes that this is God speaking to us and warning us and showing us, says the time is at hand. This book of Revelation is timeless.
Yeah.
It speaks to every one of us all the time, if we will, if we will listen.
Yeah, it's not for somebody else somewhere else at some other time. It's for us right now.
Right.
Carrie sent in her answer is this. The blessings span from Revelation 1 to Revelation 22, from the beginning to the end. They accompany us on our journey on this earth as we progress from the first recognition of the Christ, Revelation 1, to the end of the journey, when we see ourselves as God sees us, purified and perfected, at one with him, Revelation 22. During each phase of our journey towards that at one-ment, the blessings in between act as instructional guides to fortify us in our march forward. We can learn that God is always by our side. The Christ is always ministering to us, and we are never far from the next blessing.
Beautiful.
It's very beautiful. It's a good summation of it. And also, Kratzer spoke to each one of these. And the first one, the time is at hand for the servants of God that read and hear, comprehend the words of this prophecy, to keep whole thought and obey these things, the virtual commands, which are written therein. But there is nothing in the whole situation to suggest that the time is at hand for the movements and events forecast in the prophecy to happen to the world at large. So he's saying this is an individual thing. God's law becomes manifest in the world only in the measure that human beings apprehend and enforce it. Hence, it is highly important to rapid progress that men should foreknow the order of advancing demonstration and experience as the final goal to be attained. So I thought that was really good. That speaks to that quote that was given again by Anne that says, that we must work on ourselves. And as we work on ourselves, it helps spiritualize the whole world. It also goes with the watching point. I believe it was from last week that this is the real purpose of the church, the spiritualization of our each individual thought, not in gaining huge amount of numbers, which has been done. A lot of good it did.
They want disciples or converts, disciples, not converts, right?
Right. We want disciples.
Oh, yes, disciples, not converts, right? Yes. And you see, as we do it, and this is why it's so important, as we do it now and not wait for some future salvation, but are doing it now, we can help hasten the time of all good, the millennium, rather than doom and gloom, which is what we seem to be seeing at times. There was an interesting article or commentary. Why is our modern world under ancient curses? Well, and this is kind of what this whole Revelation thing is. If we obey this, we read the Bible, if we do the commandments, we won't come under all these curses, so-called curses that happen when we ignore our loving Father and Mother God. Curses like plagues, mass shootouts. I mean, these things should not be happening. But as Mrs. Eddy says, why stand aghast at nothingness?
Exactly.
That's a basic concept in the Bible, right? Because when the Israelites first came to Israel, they went over to two mountains. One was Mount Ebal. I forget the name of the other mountain. But they went up on Mount Ebal, and then they would say blessings. And then the people on the other mountain, opposite, would say curses.
Oops.
So the kind of paint the picture for
Right.
everybody that, there are blessings and there are curses. Now choose your way of life.
Wow, that's
Interesting.
great. Yeah. And this is the importance of reading the Bible and why some people don't want to. They don't want to read anything tough. They don't want to hear about the curses, but sometimes you need to be prodded to.
Or they don't want to change their lifestyle too much.
So yeah, who else wants to talk about the blessings?
Well, I was thinking about blessing number 3. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And I was just thinking about how Christ healed that man, and then he was clothed and in his right mind. And that's what science teaches us to do, is to be in our right mind and to not feel naked against AM coming at us. So.
Well, that's fascinating. This is a very visual blessing, right? So the reasons why we should watch, right? We'll keep our garments, right? But if we're not watching and protecting ourselves, then we're going to be completely unprotected or naked.
Yeah, it says he comes like a thief, right? You don't know when he's going to come. So it just should be a way of life, which is what we try to instill in all of us here, to watch. What I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. We do it just as in Mrs. Eddy's home. As much as you have time for it, you do it.
Well, you can do it all day, actually.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, unceasing prayer and unceasing watching.
Yeah. our theme for I guess it's the December Liberator, is the watchful shepherd. And it will be a combination, yes, of our Christmas holy days, but also the importance of watching, because the shepherds were watching. They beheld the star of Bethlehem. They were alert and awake, and they saw it. If you're not alert and awake, you miss so much of what God is doing. And you're not in the era that would seem to try to creep up.
Yeah, rousy.
Yes.
And blessing too really kind of tells us like how good it is for us on a day-to-day basis, because it says here that they rest from their labors and their works do follow them. So as we let's say read our lesson, or we pray, or we do watching, or we do the right thing, wherever that is, okay, we are going to get our rest, and our life is going to be more peaceful because we're going about doing the Father's work.
Yes.
So it's not an unpleasant style, is what I'm saying.
No, it is not. Thank you.
It's interesting how they chose the words for that blessing, those that die in the Lord. And my take on it is, it's the death of selfishness and, impure ambition. And it's the death of all the worldly influences. And once that's cleared out, then the path is free and clear.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
And in his works, God's work will follow you. And it's consistent with what it says in Philippians, that where it says, "For it is God which worketh in you, both to will and to do of his good pleasure." We've had that verse many times, but it's so true. And just as a side note, this is a little bit of a history. Back when Asa Gilbert Eddy passed on, because he was struggling so hard to protect his wife, Mary Baker Eddy, this was the theme of the eulogy that was given for him. But it was, I'm sure, intended to break this striking impression of somebody died, which he didn't. In fact, Mrs. Eddy even wrote a poem about Asa Gilbert Eddy meeting her mother in the next life.
What was the theme?
The theme was, "Blessed are they which die in the Lord."
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It says that their works will follow them, because he was a righteous and a good man, and he did many good works. And he was devoted to the cause which Mrs. Eddy was devoted to as well.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Bruce is reading
Bruce is
all
our
these
historian.
biography and now. It's wonderful. Thank you. Well, and I've had people ask me about the second death and all that kind of thing. And in Unity of Good, she explains it, pages 2 and 3. I won't read the whole thing, but just the first paragraph. According to the same rule in divine science, the dying, if they die in the Lord, awake from a sense of death to a sense of life in Christ, with a knowledge of truth and love beyond what they possessed before, because their lives have grown so far toward the stature of manhood in Christ that they are ready for this spiritual transfiguration through their affections and understanding. And that's what happened to Asa Eddy. And then it goes on about the second death too, where, they still are believing in a material existence. And as Bruce explained, that has to die. That's all that dies are our false beliefs, till we get into that understanding of who and what we truly are, and understand there is no death, because there is not.
I just found something that I liked in Matthew Henry for the third blessing. He says that when Jesus Christ comes to judge the world, to those living near to Christ, it is an object of joyful hope and expectation, and delay is not desired by them.
Thank you.
I think the seventh one sums it up for me. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. That it's, to me, it's like, are you living in obedience to his laws?
Thank you. Yeah, that's the whole Sermon on the Mount, 10 Commandments. Are you obeying those?
The blessings are the God's provision, favor, the healing that we get, all of that.
Yeah.
I've said this before, but that's why our Sunday school is the most important education our children can ever have. Because without the fundamental Christianity, the fundamental discipline of obedience to God's commandments, all the knowledge of human affairs and mathematics and English and all that stuff is not going to be put to good use anyway, unless it has a fundamental foundation. And Mrs. Eddy has said, Christianity must be scientific and science must be Christian. Otherwise, one of them is false and useless or something like that. That's paraphrasing. So the discipline of doing God's commandments is fundamental to having a decent life. Otherwise, why are we here?
Yeah, I happened to see a picture of someone I'd gone to high school with that I hadn't seen since that time. And this guy's face, I recognized him. It was a little hard to recognize him, but his face was beaming. And in reading about it, he'd become a minister, and he had formed this something called Room in the Inn. And he was providing shelter for homeless people in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he just looked so happy. And I thought, well, that's because he was doing good for people. He'd helped thousands of people to have homes or places to sleep and food. And you could just tell on his face that he'd lived a happy life because it involved doing for others rather than doing for himself. And I was so happy to see that.
Gary mentioned something very profound when he said that essentially science must be Christianly. A lot of times people think about science and it's like the cold hard facts and exact knowledge. Well, exact knowledge is true, but it's not cold and heartless. It's Christianly. And if you go to the cold hard aspect of it, you're missing it.
Yeah, like that Pharisee in the Chosen, Shmuel, talking about the law is God. He had just a very hard, regimented view of what God could do, and had no love in it.
Thank you. Yeah, so true. Goodness. And then Nicodemus saying, Shamal, you have learned nothing from me.
That was a good line.
That was a good line.
I guess it's not necessary to repeat the scripture that we so frequently state, that all the law hangs on 2 points: to love God with all your heart and soul and mind, and your neighbor as yourself. That's the law.
Okay.
Well, another commentary says, scattered through Revelation are 7 blessings that give hope and remind us that God's way brings blessings and that in the end, God wins. The Greek word makarios, translated blessed, means blessed, possessing the favor of God, that state of being marked by fullness from God. It indicates the state of the believer in Christ. And God's blessings are not the result of luck God gives a joy that no one and nothing can take from us. And Macarius is a rich word whose meaning connotes someone who is well off and fortunate. It even includes the meaning of happiness, but in the sense of above and beyond, a mere emotion of happiness. So this is why you do see joy in people's faces when they discover this, and they're living with the Father and obeying his commandments. They have a joy that's unmistakable, and you can feel it and see it in them. It's well worth working for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and thank God for science that we can understand why this is the case, and we can count on it. We can count on it because God, who is love, who is the truth, who is the only life that there is, that God is all there is. And that's why all of this, hardship and dismay and problems and earthquakes and all this kind of stuff, the suffering is a creation of false belief. And that's why it can be healed. It can be because the false belief can be destroyed by the truth. And it necessarily follows that the result of the false belief will vanish once the false belief is destroyed by the truth. And that, to me, is the message of Revelation. And that's why, as Mary's just read, God wins.
God wins, yes.
That's wonderful. It's a good way to sort of wrap up Revelation.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank God.
So, the next part of our Bible study is Philippians. I picked this partly because it's in our December 24th lesson. And so I thought we'd take some time to study Philippians, and we'll also be in a future Bible study going over the birth of Jesus. So we're kind of going to be delving into the December 24th lesson a bit. Okay. Now, Philippians is a pretty brief letter, but I just want to give a few points about it that things that we should know, right? So it is thought that the letter was probably written when Paul was in Rome, when he was in prison. He wrote this to the saints. The saints is meant to be, Christians, members of the church in Philippi in Macedonia. Now, it was Philippi who established, and he named the city after himself. And Philippi was the father of Alexander the Great. So the church was established about 50 AD during Paul's second missionary trip. I think I understand he did not actually visit the city when he established it. But then when he went on his third missionary trip, he did visit the church in Philippi twice. Now, one of the things that people say about this letter is that they feel that this letter is expressing what they think is his best relationship with a church. So this is the church that he kind of felt closest to in a way, right? And partly because in some of the other letters to the other churches, he talks about problems that need to be fixed there, so to speak, right? And there's less of that in this letter to Philippi. And then overall, the theme of the letter is joy. So I'll quote one verse here, chapter 1, verse 4. Always in every prayer of mine for you, all making request with joy. So it's like our quote, praise the Lord. And we did this joyfully.
May I just add one thing to what?
Absolutely.
Thank you for that wonderful that, first of all. And this church was very, very generous to Paul, this church.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons they were such a good connection. He trusted them because of their devoutness and their generosity. So thank you for that history of it.
Yeah, that was
That's
fascinating.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, question 2. What does Philip about being blessed? So this is our transition from the blessings of Revelation to the blessings of Philippians. And I'll add my editorial. As I read Philippians, there are so many verses in there that are near and dear to our hearts in that letter. So, from Philippians it says, "My God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus." So that's Philippians chapter 4, verse 19.
Well, could anything be more reassuring than knowing that God provides us with everything we need every day, all the time? And according to his riches, I mean, is there anything lacking in God?
No,
No.
the source of all good. Mhm.
So how often do we wake up in the morning or whatever, get in our car and worry about not having enough of something?
Mrs. Eddy says, don't let the thought of lack be with you for a moment. And that's what he means by that. Because your connection with God means they're always available, whatever you might need.
Thank you.
And remember, the Church of Philippi was very generous in giving to Paul. And Paul responded by saying, God will supply all of your need, as if to reward their love and goodness and appreciation of what Paul was doing and has done, and their generosity to him.
Yeah. And shows that Paul knew that God was the source of their generosity. And he wanted to remind them of what he knew.
Yeah, what a repayment this is. It's so encouraging and so filled with all kinds of teaching. It's quite amazing. I was happy just to read through it all, just in preparing for this, to see it all in one.
Yeah. How often do you read through the whole chapter? It was beautiful. Thank you.
I also think during that time as well, just like now, there were a lot of people that giving up a lot of things they have had. For instance, a lot of them were giving up businesses to follow this new movement that was, going on that time, Christian movement. Some were giving up relationships, some were giving up positions, wealth. And during that time, even it happened as well during the time of Jesus Christ as well. There were fear among them if they are making the right choice. As you can see today as well, people, when they decide to give their life to God, all of us been there, I particularly have been there. You have this fear in you. Am I going to be able to continue to do this for myself, for my family, if I follow this calling? And I think Paul is reminding them here, you're making a good choice if you're having this fear, because whatever your need may be, it won't be a problem.
Yeah.
God will continue to provide those needs for you. It's like a reassurance.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
And I think it brings up another point that is important here. How much do we really need? It's so easy to look around and be envious of what other people have. But how much do we or they actually really need? A lot of people have a great abundance. And for most people, a great abundance is more of a liability than an asset.
Yes.
So be careful what you desire. But when we are satisfied, being able to meet our needs, and we don't spend time wanting more than we need, then we are happy. Then we are at peace, truly. Because when you can tell, envy and lust and everything else to go back to where they came from, then you can be really, truly happy. And you can make the right decisions, as Benjamin was talking about. And be confident that God will continue to provide everything you need.
And the truth is that it's not just promised. God always follow up on that. Because there's been evidence that he actually really did provide for them.
Yeah. He lives up to his covenant.
Mm-hmm. So I've read this before, but it reminded me of what Una Willard said. I think it's in her 1944 address. She said, when Jesus dismissed all temptation to desire personal and isolated good for himself, angels came and ministered unto him.
Mm.
I think of that a lot.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Barnes in the commentaries. Sometimes we think of ourselves, we have to be careful about not thinking of ourselves as being poor, when in fact we have a lot of what we already need. But Barnes says something about the benevolent are not usually poor, and if they are, God often raises up for them benefactions and sends supplies in a manner as unexpected, and hearing proofs of divine interposition as decided, as when supplies were sent by the ravens to the prophet. And I just thought that was so good, because he was at his wit's end, at the bottom of the heap, as it were, and God supplied his food and kept him going until he was able to hear the still small voice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That there's a big Neil Young article called "If You Say I Want," and he makes an interesting point. If you're saying always I want this, I want that, I don't have this, you're denying God. You're denying the fact that you have. You have to start declaring you have all good, whatever that good is needed, supply, health. Otherwise, you just go through earth this needy being and not realizing that God has and is and always will supply all your needs. Give us today our daily bread.
Right.
Daily.
And what does Mrs. Eddy say about that?
Feed the famished.
Give us grace for today.
So we can feed the famished affection. What we get, it has to be a matter of to give back. Well, that's what Gary was talking about, all these people that have so much in excess. If they give back, we could probably solve world hunger and everything else.
Undoubtedly.
Mm-hmm.
Undoubtedly. No question about it.
Well, I just, maybe I chuckle over this or I don't understand it, but we've all read these stories of people who build their dream home and they spend 10 years or more building it. And then as soon as they build it, they sell it.
Yeah,
They
I've even
realize
heard.
there's no satisfaction in
Yeah,
it.
they want something
And
else.
hopefully they learn their lesson. But we also hear about people who have been blessed with wealth and have established foundations, charities to help mankind, and they have done wonderful things. Some of them, many of them, have done wonderful things for mankind with what they have been given. And that should be encouraged, because there are a lot of people who don't like that formula because they don't trust God.
They don't trust people to be good stewards of what God gives them.
Exactly.
I also think one of the fascinating things about Jesus Christ, I mean, to me, I found very fascinating about him in one of the so-called miracles that was recorded in the Bible, the feeding of 5,000 with a couple of loaves of bread and fishes. Well, if you read that story very well, he never asked God anything except thanking him. I mean, every time I read that verse, it just, I wish I can, do a little bit of that.
Yeah, he didn't
He never
ask.
asked God to multiply those bread. He just thanked him for what he already gave him, which are just a couple of those things. And they multiply all over the place.
Yeah, he thanked God for always providing whatever is needed because he knew it. He knew the science.
It is that, thank you, because that's such a good point. You know, that's that story too of what do you have in the house, that story of the widow woman. Mm-hmm. Start with what you have. We all have something. You build on what you have. That's acknowledging that God has given you something. Use that and it will expand. It's a law and it's true. And if you do it, it works. But if you're always seeing yourself not having and, oh, look at so-and-so, they've got so much and I don't, and look at the job they have and I don't, and look at this. For one thing, it's really a hateful, unkind thought, and you'll never get anywhere with that kind of thinking.
Coveting,
yes. Thank God for what you have, and it will expand. And truly thank, not superficially, but it goes back to praising him. What we talked about in the very beginning. Are you seeing him? And that will supply your every need. A quote from McKinsey that Carrie sent was, "My God, so great is his wealth, will in glory fully satisfy your every need through your union with Christ Jesus." So, and your union with Christ Jesus is the state of being where you're praising God, you're grateful, you're not envious, you see all that he's done for you. We talked about our memory. Is in remembering God, not in forgetting all he did and just remembering all the awful things you think you've suffered. These are laws and principles. If you practice, they will bless you. Blessed, yes.
Yeah, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. So.
Thank you, yes.
I was thinking, as you were talking about supplying need, and as I gain more and more understanding in Christian Science, I've come to realize that my main need is what Proverbs 4 states. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. And so I want to understand and be wise in my thoughts. And that third blessing, I was thinking about the watching is giving your attention to God. And our garments are our thoughts. So when we're watching with God and doing what he wants us to do, then our thoughts are continually on him. And we're always protected. And then we really don't
want any material thing, which can bring no satisfaction whatsoever, no matter how much you think you have. I know people that have so much and they're constantly buying more. How many purses can you have? I mean, how much jewelry can you wear? One person I know had so many watches, she wore 2 at one time and didn't even realize it. It was so funny. But that is a perfect example.
That's the Imelda Marcos approach to the world.
1,000.
Well, that's an intro to the third question. Right?
I want to say that was funny about the watches because we had recently watched this movie called Snow Dogs, and that's one of the things one of the characters said, "You don't know what time it is."
Okay. Question number 3. How do you let, quote, your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Christ, unquote? Or as in the NIV, it says, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. That's Philippians chapter 1, verse 27. Or I could recap it, how should we conduct ourselves? Just like the NIV, in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ.
Spread the good news.
Don't be the voice of error.
Don't complain.
One point in the readings, it talks about being honest. And in my readings that we do every day with 5 pages, I came across this quote, a couple of them, and this isn't the only place I've seen it, by Mrs. Eddy, Noah Yes, page 2 and 3. Dishonesty destroys one's ability to heal mentally. And then the other side, she says, dishonesty necessarily stultifies the spiritual sense, which mind healers especially need. So that was quite an eye-opener for me. Having worked with my practitioner myself, making sure I'm honest and that I'm even paying attention to what's in my thinking and being self-aware, the white lies or not being true to yourself. But this really hit home to me. You can't be a healer, and it stultifies your spiritual sense. So it's not I never thought it was a joke, but when I saw this, the power of honesty is truly important. So that's what I found myself working with.
Thank you.
After reading that.
Yes, honesty is spiritual power. It's most important. You're expressing truth, a synonym of God with a capital T. And if you don't, you are weakening yourself in ways you don't even realize. You're also attracting to you dishonesty. If you're dishonest, you will attract dishonesty to you, and then you wonder why it happens. If you are honest and forthright, truth, life, and love are a law of annihilation against anything unlike themselves. So when you are truthful in all your ways, a dishonest thought can't come near you unless it comes to be healed and blessed.
You don't want to break the commandment about bearing false witness.
That's right.
Well, and that's why, being watchful in your thought, standing porter at the door of your thought is important as you conduct your daily affairs. Because when you are honest, when you are, recognizing what God is doing in your life and in others' lives, and when you're, representing in your own life as best you can the science of Christianity, well, the false beliefs that claim to be law for mankind aren't going to like that. that representation in your life is going to be a threat to some people, they think, when in fact the truth is it will be a blessing to them if they will see it. But there will be people who will be threatened by what you have to do, what you do, and what you have to say. And you have to be alert to meet that, and not get sucked in, through, because sometimes that threat will come through someone close to you. Sometimes a family member or a coworker will try to take you off or try to get you to compromise, or be dishonest about something and not be true to yourself. And you have to be willing to, as the theme says, stand fast in the Lord. And to stand fast means don't waver, don't compromise. And if someone doesn't like you for it, well, tough bananas. That's their problem, not yours. And they will eventually come around. But you have to be watchful, and you do have to stand fast.
And, standing fast when you have a love of God, truly, which we all should have. If we don't, you develop it when you find out what he really is. Get rid of your old theology and realize he is such a God of love. Then your allegiance is to God, and that helps you stand fast. Because you're just loyal. Your loyalty is to God good. So when anything else comes at you, you're not going there because of your loyalty to God. It's a tremendous help in standing fast. We must be loyal to this loving God and not accept all the erroneous lies and suggestions of error. And then our weekly lesson is certainly full this week about keeping our conversation in heaven. James, the chapter James. So are you helping the conversation? Are you uplifting it, or are you dragging it down?
I think also motive is important here. Are you sharing the message of Christ with humility to bless, or is it to be boastful? Some people I've met, it's like just to put somebody else down, like I know this, you don't, that kind of thing. I don't think that's how God wants us to honor him. So
thank you. That's so
hateful.
Important. Yeah,
it's not honoring God at all.
It's egotistical.
Yeah,
it's arrogant.
I'm glad you brought up this about stand fast. There is a sense, I think, sometimes that good people are weak people. And it's kind of an oxymoron, right?
Right.
But it's too common. Good people must be tough people.
That's exactly it.
Well, and that's why Jesus rebuked the young lawyer who called him good master. Because people who try to be humanly good are weak. Because trying to be humanly good is not good at all. It's really bad.
And they're the ones that get taken advantage of, and then they end up resenting, and it's just a big, horrible mess. I know, because I tried that.
And that's why we have one of our daily duties, neither animosity nor mere personal attachments. Trying to be humanly good shouldn't tell the motives or acts of any member of this church. So don't go there.
What did you say, Benjamin?
So that's the worst case of being dishonest.
It's true.
Yeah.
Humanly good.
Humanly good. You're trying to please people, and then you become dishonest because you're not being true to yourself, as Linda was saying. You're not speaking forthrightly what you think, where you are, and then you become dishonest, and then you're in a big muddle. It's difficult to get out of.
those that are good in that sense end up being targets for those that wish to manipulate or take from others. They're looking for people just like that.
That's right.
And then, it falls on its face ultimately.
Or worse.
Yeah, and that was what was, what beginning what Tom was talking about, that these Christians that are so nice and weak and get taken advantage of, and it doesn't help anything. You've got to stand for what you believe, and otherwise, the so-called devil would seem to have a heyday with you. So it has nothing to do with real science. And you think of how Jesus, his rebukes were fearful. I mean, that's one of the things when I first came here, when I loved so much about Mrs. Evans, she was so tough. I never saw a Christian act like that before. Holy Moses.
Mrs. Betty talks about her love for the veritable early, the Christian, the ministers who were really tough.
Really tough. Joyful, happy, loving, but man, there was a line you did not cross. And if you did, you'd hear about it. And that's a good thing.
It's a great thing. So, do we have time for number 4?
Well, it's up to you. I'm going to continue with Philippians in the next 2 Bible studies.
Oh.
So I could roll it to the next Bible study, or if you want to talk about it, not over, I'm okay with that too.
That's fine with me, whatever.
Shall we roll it over?
We'll roll it over because we want to keep with the letter of Philippians.
Excellent.
And also the birth of Jesus.
Excellent.
So we're kind of delving deeply into the December 24th lesson that's upcoming.
Excellent. Thank you. That's very well thought out. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I won't read one verse that pertains to this question, but this is from Colossians. Walk worthy of the Lord unto all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. So I thought I would just give some ideas there about how to conduct ourselves. So I kind of like that.
That's good. Very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you all.